same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome to this very spooky post-Halloween episode of Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fury, and with me is the Milo to my Michael, the Jared Leto of podcasting. It's Bear!
I don't even want to comment on that. And with us, as usual, there's nothing in this movie or comic that I want to relate to the lovely and talented, the Baronessa, Mrs. Jennifer Howland.
You don't want to make her the Elizabeth?
No, that's true love right there. What Bear just did, that's right? True love.
I didn't want to hurt her. I was much like Morbius in that fashion.
Oh, God. All right.
Speaking
fine.
of true love.
Fine. And our guest today, my bestie, JR Cillian Green. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being on this episode of the show, particularly.
I will say that when I agreed to this at a 4th of July party, I did not.
While you were
did not feel like I didn't drink that night at all.
Okay.
I was completely sober when I did this.
You have no excuse.
I really have no excuse, but I didn't realize what I was doing until I was doing it. So, yeah. Good times.
So for those of you who didn't know what you clicked on, it is, in fact, Morbin Time. We are doing Morbius today. And in preparation for this, I've already cleared our calendar so that we can release this episode, take it off, and then release it again. So before we get into the delightful shit sandwich that is this movie, let's talk a little bit about the comic. We read Old Wounds, which is a fairly new Morbius comic. I do not know Avala. So the Vita Avala is the writer for this. I'm not familiar with them at all. Morbius, I am sort of familiar with just because I am a Spider-Man fan. Bear did some unfortunate extra work.
Unfortunate extra reading because I'd completely forgotten that this was one of the ones that she swapped out. So I was halfway through
the original
Morbius compendium. I was almost 200 pages into that 400 plus page monstrosity. Oh. And let me tell you something, there's probably about 100 pages of what I read that was just continually recap. I felt like I was in an episode of Dragon Ball Z. Like, it was just kept recapping everything that had happened up to that point. Every issue had just, like, 3 or 4 more frames until it got to the point where, like, the first 3 or 4 pages of every issue was just recapping of all the issues before.
So Morbius as a character is where I want to start.
Oh, you want to start with a good note? Kind of.
Kind of. I
depends on whose notes.
Yeah. Even before I was reading the comics, I first got introduced to Morbius in the Spider-Man cartoon, which was like the compendium 90s cartoon to the X-Men. And Morbius was actually somewhat interesting in that, except he fed with like suckers on his hands because they couldn't show biting in a kid's cartoon.
No biting.
No biting.
No biting.
No biting. The lies we tell our children.
Right.
No, you're not supposed to bite people. No, you're not supposed to lick people. No, well, wait. At least not for another few years.
Because of Jesus. So, JR, I'm going to start with you. What do you think of Morbius just as a character?
I think that Morbius as a character has the potential to be exceptionally interesting. And in this comic in particular, it sort of falls off into sort of a moralizing experience, but there's so much potential for him to be a cool, I would say cool, but like an interesting anti-hero-ish type of a character. And like all y'all know that I love my like noble Boy Scout superheroes, but I also like Constantine. So like, you know, right? Those are the two extremes
ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I'd go so far as to call him an anti-hero. He's really more of a reluctant hero at best.
Yeah. Well, but I think what Jay, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like what he was saying was that he had the potential
Sure.
to be a cool anti-hero and
Yeah.
didn't quite hit that mark.
Yeah, and even as a reluctant hero, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, again, going back to the like Constantine love that I have, right? You have this reluctant hero. Some people call him a hero. I would disagree with that. You have this reluctant hero. There's all kinds of beautiful like questions of what is right and what is wrong, and you know, he gets into trouble, and it's usually his own fault, etc. But there's a lot of interesting personal development. And with Morbius, it was a one track.
Yeah.
And I sort of wanted him to. There are times, I'm just going to skip to the movie for a second, but there are times when I was Milo being like, just embrace who you are and stop all of this nonsense. But again, Morbius himself, very, very close to being like a really cool idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Jen?
I agree with JR. I think the issue that I had, especially in the comic, and I felt like the character in the comic, even though it felt very one-dimensional, was far more interesting than the character in the movie. But I felt like, again, it was so one-dimensional, it was so single note. And if, you know, how narcissistic and arrogant do you have to be to say, you know, I deserve to live even though I can't control this thing that I made myself into? You know, at one point, spoilers, he does say, just kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it took almost the entire
Right.
graphic before that happened.
And I really felt like I was on Elizabeth's side
Right?
through the comic.
Good
I'm
old
like,
Vampire Hunter.
Yeah, but the thing, you know, I wasn't necessarily, I wasn't on her side that for the reasons why she was, you know, the only reason why it seemed like she had to kill him was because of her brother. And, you know, I just felt like, I don't know, it just seemed very, there was no reason for him to continue. Like, why? Other than narcissism.
Fair?
I gotta jump on the bandwagon with everything else. I think they just pushed on too long with the exact same thing, the narcissism, the rolling with it. I get at some point in time you just got to run with what you got, but I don't know. It was just, and I'll agree too exactly that this is like the newer comic, far better than the movie, because at least they had some like not necessarily personal development, but some levels of character development. Kind of, I feel almost like say Beast with the X-Men, how eventually his powers just keep evolving beyond what he originally intended, and you know, beyond his control.
Beast is a little different because Beast, actually, much like Morbius, Beast experimented on himself and made himself into that.
Yes, he wasn't trying to fix anything to begin with. So, you know, arguable that, you know, their motivations to begin with, but I feel like that's kind of, you know, a development that it ran along with. The old school comic was just a hot mess. The old school comic was really trying to make him out to be human by day, vampire by night, but at some point, a few issues in, they're just like, well, we're just going to stop making him change back into a human during the day, and he just sleeps like an actual vampire. So it was so disjointed.
Yeah, I have to say that this is definitely an issue that should be addressed in the Marvel universe. Like, there should be PSAs, like with "In the Arms of the Angel" playing behind it, being like, if you or someone you know is addicted to self-experimentation, there are resources that you can reach out to. Like, there's no scientific progress in the Marvel universe. It's just people like going straight to human trials.
Oh, yeah, especially in this comic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to skip to the movie too far yet, but Marvel and I have started to have a very contentious relationship, particularly because it started to just seem like I'm watching the same movie with different characters all shuffled together like a card deck, and
famously addressed in the end of She-Hulk.
Right?
Which I have not watched because I have reached this point of Marvel exhaustion where like every day there's something new that I'm supposed to be excited about, and I just look at it and go, yep, that's another Marvel property over there. on a hill having a good day.
If you would like a show that not only shares your exhaustion, but puts it fully on the screen and has the main character sympathize with you, watch She-Hulk.
Yes.
I will put that on my list. I know that I need to watch Miss Marvel because supposedly it is just the most beautiful thing ever. But I need to get through Midnight Mass first. Anyway, not Midnight Mass, Midnight Club first.
Midnight Mass is a whole different thing. You don't want to get through
and
that
Midnight.
too fast.
I mean, if we ever have a Let's Talk Horror with JR podcast, Midnight Mass fucked me up.
Same.
It was beautiful and wonderful, but Mike Flanagan, Lord, I love you so much. But when you hit the note, same thing with Hill House. When you hit the notes exactly right, you are a fucking genius and kill me.
We've only watched the first episode of Midnight Club, but
it's a slower burn, and it's definitely more like YA. Put that in quotation marks. But the horror portion of it, like the stories they tell, very fun. But the real horror is watching these kids like deal with their own mortality, and he does a very good job of like slowly getting you to shift your perspective over to the spirits and ghosts don't matter. They're there. Right. It's fun. There's the thing, but like they're dealing with something completely different that's much more real. I love Mike Flanagan. That's a whole other story. Anyway, with Morbius, especially this comic, and once again, people know that I love my up in the sky Superman. What's that? Tom King. Kind of thing. But I mean, I used to be a minister, and I have given my fair share of sermons, and I don't know if I have ever given a longer sermon than Morbius did in 1,000, what seemed like 1,000 pages of reading. Because
that wasn't even a sermon. That was a philosophy lesson.
It was. Yeah, you're right. It was a freshman in philosophy in a philosophy class, waxing poetic for hours. And it kept taking me out of the comic itself. So like I would be in it. There's some action. There's some cool science stuff or cool whatever, like they're sort of getting into things, and then Morbius gives like a philosophy lesson, and the comic artists narrate a philosophy lesson, and then we go back to the action. And by the fifth time that happened, I was like, what am I reading, and why am I still doing it?
I take issue with you, sir, in your statement of there was some cool science stuff. I take huge issue with that whole statement. I think the science in that was pretty much junk, but
I mean, it is okay. You're right, but it was comic book science, right? It was comic book science, and so there were machines and rays and bottles of stuff, and it was the fun comic book science that a person could possibly have.
Slides,
right?
Yeah, right. The whole thing, and yet
almost reminiscent of Alan Moore, Swamp Thing.
Well, okay. Yeah. The one part of this comic when it's dealing with the science that I did like is there are repercussions for basically turning a meth lab into your own university level laboratory. That is what screwed him up, and I am here for it.
Yeah.
Because like the beginning is him
consequences.
Right. Consequences of your actions, and not using research grade materials leads to bad results. And I don't think that is addressed often enough in comic books, in movies, in anything. And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like skipping to the movie here, the just consequences for your actions are, I mean, they're there, right? And when it comes to like doing these scientific things on a boat in quote unquote international waters, I will have a whole speech about that later on. But like doing all this kind of stuff, it's just sort of like, hey, he turned himself into some kind of superhero monster. Fun times, let's go on. At least the comic did what you said, right? Like gave some kind of, you probably shouldn't have turned a meth lab into a high quality university, try to make it into like a university lab. I mean, maybe consider your options next time. Think about it. But
which is weird though, because we see the same thing in the movie. Because he takes over a counterfeiting ring, and he's like, well, this will be great for my genetic experiments. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yes, while he tries to be quippy, and that did not work. So
well, to go back to something, yes, unsanitary as fuck. Something that Jen brought up that I want to make sure that is noted is the reason that Morbius seems more sympathetic in everything in the comic is because artists have this thing called expression that Jared Leto completely lacks.
We'll when we do the movie section, you'll also hear my rant on my 100% hatred of Jared Leto. The last good thing he did was My So-Called Life, and after that, it's just been downhill from there.
So let's go ahead. Unless anybody has anything else on the comic, I will move to the movie, but I will have to do a little disclaimer here. And that is normally sometimes when we're talking about the movie, we assume you've seen the movie and keep the comic vague. We have to make very pointed comments about this movie, but if you have not seen it,
don't. Please don't.
Unless
save yourself.
This is a liquor movie. This is not a beer.
Not
movie.
even a beer movie. Yeah.
This is not a popcorn movie unless
It's
you're
not
going to
worth
popcorn
your
and
time.
liquor.
You can drink without having to watch this godforsaken movie.
I watched Starship Troopers 3, and if you get enough alcohol in you, anything is fun.
I would prefer Starship Troopers to Morbius.
Yeah, at least then you've got sort of like a riff tracksy type thing that you can go along with, or an MST3K. I'm going to push back a little bit, though. I mean, I watched this movie. The best I can say about it is that it is dull, right? Like it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It doesn't, blow my brains out, but it's just dull from beginning to end.
I don't know that I'd call it dull. I would call Dark Phoenix dull.
I haven't seen that one, so I guess I'm,
Like, and as I pointed out, I've watched Dark Phoenix at this point 4 times. I cannot remember a single goddamn thing about that movie.
I remember one thing. I remember the scene in the street in the residential area where she just blows everybody up.
Oh, okay. But that's the thing.
The scene at the end where there's like a conflagration of like just shit flying around, and there's about to be some big like emotional like existential moment between like her and Wolverine and Scott, and then it's just like
was Wolverine even in that one?
I thought he was.
Maybe I thought that was the end of Apocalypse.
Maybe I'm blending two or three.
No, that was the end of X-Men 3 is what you're thinking of, which was the other Dark Phoenix.
Okay, I'm thinking of the other Dark Phoenix.
But that's the thing.
The reason why I remember it, because that was, actually...
Because it was not, yeah. But that's the thing. A dull movie is one that just sloughs off of my mind, and I just can't pick out anything from it. Like I said, 4 times. 4 times. Yes, Midsummer is a great example. Just dull. I knew what was happening in Midsummer 5 minutes into the movie.
Okay, well, I will go drive all the way to Iowa to fight you on Midsummer, but that's fight you hard. But we've already had that conversation in person over cider, so
it's true.
I just don't feel like making that argument again.
But that's the thing. A dull movie is one that you don't remember anything. I remember parts of Morbius, and I've watched it twice. I remember parts of it, but most of what I remember is Matt Smith. He knew what this movie was walking in.
Yeah.
He took his paycheck. He cashed the fucker before the check could bounce, and he gave a performance worthy of what he knew this movie to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, really him and Jared Harris, right? Like they both sort of give it their best British all, and the rest of them you have to just like, I see that you're here. Thank you so very much.
Well,
I do have so many comments.
The cops were like, I'm like, you are ridiculous. Why would you say these things?
Yeah, that's one of the things I would love to talk about is how like they went for like how do you know your cops have been in the Marvel universe for too long? Their first response is must be a vampire. Like that's how they don't go through anything. Oh, vampires. I guess that's a thing we have to deal with now. Gonna go on.
Well, that is definitely a thing that I wanted to address. It's on my list, and it's more for the comic than it is for the movie because the movie doesn't have other vampires running around.
Right.
I mean, theoretically, this is supposed to be in the same universe as like Blade.
Yeah.
So there are real vampires. They're not just science vampires.
But they haven't talked about it in any other movie.
Right. So independent in the movie, you have that removed. My 2 big issues with the comic is that there are other vampires. Like you live in a world that has vampires. the average person on the street knows that vampires exist because superheroes fight them and or sometimes turn into them, Jubilee, all the time. So like the way that you deal with that has to be different. And in the comic, it's kind of hand-waved a little bit. The other problem that I had is with the inclusion of you have a female vampire hunter. Do not need to create a whole new character with a background for this. We have a perfectly good Elsa Bloodstone. And if you have not seen Werewolf by Night, it is one of the better things that Marvel has put out because it's completely removed. And it is basically shot like a 1920s Universal film. And it's wonderful. 1940s. Yes, that's true. But Elsa Bloodstone is a thing. You should use her more often. There's no reason to create another vampire hunter that isn't going to die. But anyway, that's the issue that I also have with the Morbius movie, though. Because you want to include, like, Venom, and you want this to be an all-inclusive kind of Marvel Universe movie. Well, in the Marvel Universe, vampires are around. Like, not in the MCU yet, but, you know,
working on that.
You've got a guy, it's green, you've got aliens, you've got a talking raccoon, you've got a tree walking around being a hero with Vin Diesel's voice. I mean, vampires are not that far off, you know? So that's what I'm saying. Like, cops going straight to must be vampires. I think that's just them being like, well, fuck it. Fuck it.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like they've reached this point where I was like, all right, I guess this is something else we do
right
today, right? Like, fine. I don't even want to.
Even the newest out of the academy rookie is the old grizzled vet being like, I've seen some shit. You think you're gonna change things around here? You ever fought an abomination?
I'll tell you I have. Didn't the Hulk get turned into a vampire at one point in time?
Oh, God, if he did, I want to find out about it.
I think it was in a...
Careful what you wish for. I just took you through Absolute Carnage.
I know, but I didn't read it, so I didn't get to see how little he was actually in there with the symbiote suit.
No, there was I think it was a cartoon version of the Hulk, and Dracula's involved. I've got to go look this up.
Dracula is involved all the time.
Episode.
It might have been.
And I really did not like that whole series. I didn't watch that much of it, and I could not get into it.
Anyway, yeah.
Nerd Hulk became a vampire.
Oh, okay.
Smart Hulk became a vampire.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to look into that. I have a lot of...
Oh, no. He's a clone created by Tony Stark's older brother, Gregory. God damn it, comics.
Can I say that there are times when you read these things off and I'm like, as a half Mexican man, this is basically a telenovela.
It is.
Yep.
There was a period in the mid-90s when my friends and I would get out of high school and we would go over to my friend's house, and before we would start our role-playing game of the day, it was probably Riffs, there was a soap opera, and I don't remember what turned on because it had concurrently Lady is Possessed, Twin has taken over and kept her or his brother locked in a room to take over their life.
Was this Days of Our Lives?
I don't know. And there was like a third silly ass plot. And like for a 6-month period, we teenage boys came home and watched this because we were like, what the fuck?
Sounds like Days of Our Lives, honestly.
I don't know. I think it sounds like more like Passions.
I haven't seen that one, but
all I know about Passions is that Spike talks about it in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He does. It got
Speaking of better vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of better vampires, yeah.
So, Morbius. Move on to your next in the many litany of things that you would like to discuss, JR. Because man, okay. we are here for this.
We're here for this. Okay, first off, I despise Jared Leto, so the fact that I volunteered for this meant that I had to go against my own grain to do this. But your
own survival instinct,
survival instinct, even when Jared Leto is, because I don't think he's a great actor. I don't know where this came from. The people think so, but I don't even think 30 Seconds to Mars is all that amazing. But he normally puts more into this, and there were times when I was like, he is just bored out of his fucking mind, and he is going to make us all bored with him. Like, this man is just there. He He's just there in a science lab. He is just there with his bat hurricane lamp. He is just there with everything else. He's just sort of there while everyone else around him is doing something.
I'm just saying, I'm hired on an expedition, right? And I'm just Joe Q person. And I get on a helicopter and I go out with this fucking weird ass dude with a cane. And he walks to the mouth of this cave and he's waxing poetic about vampire bats. I'm like, okay, cool. And then he cuts his hand and holds it out. I am citizens arresting that man. I'm like, no, I've got
reckless endangerment.
I've got zip ties in here somewhere. And I don't know if I just take your cane and kick you in the other leg or what, but you are not summoning a bunch of bats. And I sure as hell am not helping you. Take them all back to the United States.
Is literally my first note in my list of notes. My notes. I mean, you were there while I was making my notes. I was half a bottle of rum in. We were both half a bottle of rum in.
I was the other half.
He was the other half of the bottle.
Yeah, that's for sure, because I was not.
Yeah.
You poor thing. You had to do this with your brain, unbuffered. But yeah, my whole first note is a vampire movie that opens like Kong.
Yeah, you're right. It does open like Kong.
And you know what? Kong? Better movie.
Oh yeah, better movie. I think that the other thing is I was watching this / doing other things while watching this, just to keep myself to you just gotta ease the suffering a bit. I think my favorite part was these are evolved vampire bats, and they're right. And I'm like, a vampire bat barely nicks anyone, right? Right. That's the whole thing. I was like, this is some 1940s Dracula shit right now, and once again. Dracula, better movie, right? Better novel. All the forms of Dracula. The Hammer horror version.
I was about to bring up the 70s.
So the first one, I think, Blood of Dracula, that came out from Hammer Horror. It was on the 101 Scariest Movie Moments of All Time. That one with Christopher Lee is pretty damn excellent. Yeah, and then they get more and more ridiculous as time goes on. But
that's the one where it's splatter. On the ship
Giallo.
In the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Giallo film with Dracula around. And but all of these movies are better than this. As Bear says, we're gonna go and do a moment from Kong just to make sure that you realize that we're Sony and we can. And then we're going to go and do some other stuff that looks Marvel-esque. And we're going to do a flashback to Two Boys in the Hospital like we're watching Atonement. Great. It's just one thing after another. And anyway, it doesn't seem like it wants to connect to itself at any given moment.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like I said, the only thing that I find that bonds this movie together is Matt Smith, who, bless him, is just doing what he can. Up to and including just a little tap dance at one point.
Yeah, yes, that whole thing, right? And Matt Smith is one of my favorite doctors, and just watching him decide that I am going to just play this for fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent, right?
Right.
Just like him playing in Last Night in Soho, him playing evil pretty damn well and just going for it. Oh, it's great.
Haven't seen that one yet.
Okay, well, that means I have to go to Iowa.
Yeah.
Run y'all Blood on the Clock Tower.
Yep.
And then show you that. All right, it's fine.
I haven't seen Last Night in Soho yet, and I really want to.
Yeah, I do
it's
too.
It's really good.
It's on one of the streaming services.
It's on HBO.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen it on HBO.
But in that one, you've got Matt Smith, who is known as the goofball doctor, and he's done a few things, done some serious work, right? He did The Crown, he's been on stage. And in Last Night in Soho, he does such a good job of turning from charming to just wicked. And that man's an Edgar Wright film, so the whole damn thing is well put together and well acted and well scored and everything. But you see him do this great acting work, and in Morbius, he's just trying to keep it together. I feel like he's the person who realizes that him and Jared Harris are going to be the only ones that are keeping this movie floating until the very end, so they better work their ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, okay, so going through. There is a scene now that you mentioned the boys scene when he and Milo meet, when Michael and Milo meet. Nothing takes me out of a movie. I'm not going to say quicker, but on the top of my list than the mustache twirly with no mustaches, young bully boys that will do things horribly out of character. Like, I have met some horrible people in my life. I had bullies in high school. I don't think any of them would attack somebody with a cane. Like somebody that was handicapped. I just don't see that happening.
Oh, my good man, you never grew up in rural South Dakota.
Okay. That as soon as I saw your face, I should say, no one that grew up in an urban environment.
Nobody who grew up, like, having to live, work, play, and exist around
in a
other
society.
human beings, in a society, in a diverse culture.
Right. I do not see that happening, because they would have had to be, what, it would have been the late 80s at that point, if they're in their 40s, or even the 90s if they're in their 40s.
Late 70s, most of the 80s.
Yeah, and even then, I don't see any bullies being like, there's a cripple, get him! You know?
Well, again, comic book movie.
Yeah,
Same with the reaction from the police.
Right.
Oh, must be a vampire. It's like, this is not it. These are the things that, giant air quotes, subtle nods to the fact that you are not in, like, the universe that you live in.
Speaking of subtlety, I was actually trying to remember a quote that I could have swore was from back in the day when we used to watch John Doe.
Oh, yeah.
It was either that or it was from The Pretender. I can't remember which show it was a quote from, but I remember one of them monologuing and saying something along the lines of, subtlety is a virtue in every form, and was actually just looking that up, so I wanted to figure out where it came from, who exactly said it, what show it came from, or who quoted it before that, and managed to find a paper. I fell down a Google hole, okay? I managed to find a paper that somebody wrote on the art of subtlety versus heavy-handedness, and this entire movie is literally just beating you in the head with, we're trying to be different, we're trying to be edgy and cool, we're trying to show you something that's really awesome, and you just get passive in it, and you sit back, and then by the time it's done, you either go, okay, well, let's move on to the next thing, or, my God, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
Those are pretty much the only responses you can have to this movie. I had something that was slightly different. We discussed it while we were talking about the movie after it was done, while we were, both half a bottle of rum in, that if they wouldn't have called this Morbius, if they wouldn't have put a Marvel logo on it, I might have just looked at it as another bad vampire movie and actually ranked it somewhere in my list because I love bad vampire movies.
Yeah.
I
love good vampire movies.
I love
I
good
just love vampire movies.
I love bad vampire movies. Like, I'm a big fan. Like, some of my favorite movies are like Dracula 2000.
I love Dracula 2000.
Right?
I think Dracula
Wasn't
2000
that great?
I think Dracula 2000 is highly underrated, and people need to go back and watch that again because I think it's great. So,
just for the story of how Dracula came to be alone, because they didn't take the Vlad Tepes route with it.
Right? Yeah.
And
they didn't go. They didn't go Kane because they'd have gotten sued. So that's
right.
Yeah.
But then like Dracula Untold, which I thought was a brilliant take on the beginning of the Dracula story. This would have probably just fallen somewhere in the mix of other miscellaneous vampire movies, and I've just been like, yeah, it's got its moments. But when they look at it and they're like, oh, this is how all this works, and they're throwing all this weird fucked up science at it, and you're getting results that don't really mesh with the experiments they were doing in the first place. I'm just kind of like, really? The rest of the Marvel universe kind of has better science than this.
Yes.
Or at least they are working with science that is entirely science fiction.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to work with stuff that we've already got and explaining that away.
Right.
Yeah. This did not need... In fact, I will go one further, and I even enjoy the first two Venom movies. Those really didn't need... Sony does not need to try to make their own Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for this. Morbius is the third one. I'm just going to go ahead. There are 3 greenlit that are either going... Yeah, they're going to release... they're either filming or in post-production. One is Kraven the Hunter without Spider-Man. Why?
I don't know who that is, but okay, go ahead.
He's a Russian guy that hunts things.
Wasn't Kraven in something else that we did?
He popped
up in... Did he pop up in... Was it Howard the Duck?
Altogether Possible.
I think that was the first other, because we've read stuff that had Craven in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was in
Before
Howard the Duck. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Uh,
hunting scene at the mansion.
Yeah, where they're having like the most dangerous game moment.
yeah. Madam Web, who she is basically the person at the center of like the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse.
So they're going to do a Spider-Verse movie, live action, without Peter Parker.
Those are choices.
And El Muerto, which I can't believe it is such an obscure character. It's basically the Marvel version of Bane. And the only reason that I can tell that it has a green light and that it's happening at all is because it's going to star Bad Bunny.
That's the one that's going to star Bad Bunny, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. That could be a fun movie, though.
Yeah, it's like a...
He was so good.
He was good in Bullet Train.
In Bullet Train,
he was fantastic in Bullet. For like the 10 minutes he was in Bullet Train.
It doesn't matter.
And then playing a dead body. So yeah, just why? Why? I mean, Venom movies, sure. You do not need to build a franchise around Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies.
I don't know. As far as Venom goes, I was actually kind of enjoyed Venom and the fact that they took it away from Spider-Man. Mainly because I didn't read that much Spider-Man growing up. I knew that he was a Spider-Man villain, when he first came into being, but bringing him in separate from Spider-Man didn't faze me really, and probably again just because I didn't have that investment already.
Well, and I felt like again, I don't know how big of a spoiler it is. We know that Morbius is Spider-Verse,
right?
So I felt like while Spider-Man doesn't figure hugely in the comic, I mean he's there and he's an important character, but he was important for moving the story along, I felt, in the comic. And, for reasons, and I just won't go into it, that could be helpful in the movie.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. This was such a weird, why did you do this movie?
It is a weird, why did you do this movie? And are we to the end credit scene yet? I don't want to, because I got more stuff to say about this.
Say some more before we get to the end credit scene.
Okay.
The end credit scene makes zero fucking sense, even in the universe that they've created, and I have a lot to say about it as well.
Great.
I don't even remember it. Half a bottle of rum made me not even remember the end credit scene.
Oh, hey, there you go. It's probably good. I will say, though, not the end credit scene. I did like the color aesthetic of the end credits with that sort of fuchsia and purple. I thought that was really great, and I think that's the best compliment I can give this movie. So, yes,
good color choice.
Good color choice. We had this sort of like '80s, but like modern, like you're about to watch In Search of Darkness. It was great. Highly recommend, by the way, In Search of Darkness trilogy. Oh yes, I said I was going to do this. Okay. All right. So we're clocking along in the movie. We've gone to Kong Island. He's come back. We've seen his backstory.
Thank you for that, sir.
Skull Island.
That's right.
Right, whatever.
Kong Island, Skull, same difference.
Yeah.
You're back. You have your flashback just so you can try to get some like Oscar-worthy drama in. So that's fun with kids because we all like kids.
You turn down your Nobel Prize.
Your Nobel Prize.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, turn down your Nobel Prize. We listened to talking about Sparta, which is always what children talk about in an average everyday life. But then you go and he's going to do this experience. The mouse dies. He's got those, the as I like to call it, the vampire bat hurricane lamp. He's got, and he says, I have to perform this experiment in international waters, as if crossing international waters means all those people who are on that boat just don't exist anymore.
And laws
and like whatever atrocity he happens to cast in that world, that's it just doesn't matter because I mean it's water and it's international. So what can you do about it? And that like it made me start chuckling, and I could not get it together for the longest time throughout that entire section. I was like, he's gonna say international waters again. Oh, he did. Matt Smith is gonna talk about international waters again. Yes, there it is. Right. Say it again. Say it, Bart.
Say the line, Bart.
But there's just this. I'm starting to get funny, chuckling now. It just is the weirdest like plot forward thing, right? Like this is how we're going to get around whatever it is that's standing in our way. This is how we're going to do it. We're just going to international waters. That's the answer.
Works.
We snap our fingers and that's it. And I think it just goes to show how this movie, like, it's just on a really rickety table the entire time, right? Like, you can tell that people are trying to get something from point A to point B, and there are all of these obstacles, and they take the strangest option, period, all the time.
Yep. So going along this path of just weird stuff, so you have Martine Bancroft, who is like Morbius's confidant woman / sort of love interest-ish in a more platonic way.
I was just watching another Hot and Fluffy stand-up, and so every time I hear the name Martine now, I'm just like, Martine!
Yeah. Who I found out was based on AOC. They based this scientist, Hispanic lady, on Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez.
You have got to be fucking kidding me. I thought that was explain the hairstyle. Like, like that, you got to be like...
Nope, I'm looking
dear
at
audience.
It right now.
Yeah, dear audience, dear listeners, gentle listeners. I
wish we did video, because the looks on Bear's face right now as he's processing this information.
Listen, I've had a long day, and I haven't had near enough beer for this.
I'm just gonna put mine back on just so you can see that I'm like this right now. You've got two you got two biracial Hispanic people in this room, and I just think that, like, good for them for thinking about representation. Where,
what the fuck were you thinking?
What are you doing, right? Like, so whatever. It doesn't even surprise me,
right?
And that's maybe the saddest thing. That it doesn't surprise you
anymore. It's just like, oh well, they just kept throwing stuff in, figuring it's going to get better the more ingredients we put in it, right?
Yeah. Also, randomly, we just have to make the nod to it. Tyrese Gibson is in this movie just for no reason.
I was watching that entire thing.
He was one of the cops, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the cops. I was watching this entire thing going, is that Tyrese Gibson? Is that Tyrese Gibson? Like, the whole time. So I'm glad that I was not the only... Yeah. I'm glad that I was right.
Got a little Fast and Furious ties in here.
I think that's why I kept looking at the cops going, what the fuck is going on with these cops? Because I think they wanted to give him more lines.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know what to give him.
Yeah. Because there's no reason for them. There was no reason for those characters. Other than to be like, well, cops are investigating this.
I literally have in my notes, I'm just like, wannabe CSI detectives, and they're the MacGuffin? Okay, great.
Yep. Yeah.
I felt like at some point someone was like, okay, the cops will be kind of like comic relief, kind of. And then they were like, nah, like, I feel like there were other scenes with the two cops that were like had more to build those characters, and they cut them. Apparently
there was a lot cut. For example, Tyrese's character has a high-tech weapons grade arm.
Right, so
and everything was about the arm was cut. He also signed a 3-picture deal when he joined Morbius.
No.
Tyrese.
So now I have questions. Did they give him a high-tech robot arm because of I can't remember her name now, but the lady in Luke Cage that got the high-tech robot arm?
No, the character has one. Simon Stroud has one in the comics.
Okay.
And he's also white in the comics. When they cast Tyrese Gibson, they obviously were like going to change everything, and Tyrese was like, but not the arm. I want the arm. It's cool. And then they just cut everything out about the arm.
So they filmed it basically just to placate him, and then just cut it all out of the final. Oh, that's annoying.
That is annoying. They spent money to do this arm. Wow, that's
right. CGI and special effects to do this arm, and then they just threw it away. Now I'm annoyed.
Or did they do practical?
I kind of actually. Is this going to be like BVS, where if you actually watch the director's cut,
release the Gibson cut,
right?
Oh my god.
No.
Well, yeah, but like, is there going to be a cut that's just like better, or like like
I would imagine
King,
that if
where
there
was
was
like a 15-minute section cut out that explains the whole damn movie and actually makes it make sense.
I would imagine that if there was a
for
cut
Pete's sake.
that is better, that's what they would have released the second time they released this movie in theaters.
You would think.
I think it all depends on contracts, unfortunately. This seems like a good spot to bring up the fact that there is a short movie that was released in 2014 called Morbius, the Living Vampire. And it was...
Oh, well, we know what we're doing after the episode.
It was directed or co-directed by Adam Michaels, who also starred as Michael Morbius. And Adam Michaels is also known for... and the whole thing was filmed in Chicago in 2014. Well,
at least there wasn't a boat in international waters.
Right.
Hey, you take that boat far enough out into like Michigan. I'm pretty sure you could be like, we're in 2 states, so nothing makes that. So we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Legal.
Everything's legal, smack here in the middle. Yeah.
Except murder.
Because nobody could see us. But interesting. So 2022. I haven't looked at this yet. There is a movie called Casey Jones Livewire, and he stars as Casey Jones.
Like the Casey Jones from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I was about to ask. And he's just hyped up on like Orange Mountain View.
Vigilante Casey Jones confiscates a futuristic gun from a criminal and begins to question his brand of justice.
Yep. Starring everyone's favorite hockey
O'Neil.
mask vigilante.
Yep.
I do love me some Casey Jones and in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles world, but I was never a TMNT like diehard, so
Jenn loves Teenage Mutant.
Josh is a lying liar who lies.
Listen, all you have to do is listen to about
listen
10
to our
minutes of
episode.
our episode, or Jen just kind of checks out.
And you know, our guest, it was Luke, wasn't it? No,
it wasn't Luke.
No, it was
Neil.
Neil. It was Neil. And
he loves TMNT.
He does.
So
and
much.
at some point he's like, Jen, you're so quiet. And I'm like, my mother told me if you don't have anything nice to say nothing at all. And he was just so
in
crushed.
fact, while I was editing,
So
thought about ending the episode with Flower from Bambi being like, my mama told me. Or Thumper. Thumper was the one that said that.
Thumper is one. I'm neutral on TMNT, but that's fine. I actually had one of my friends on. I think was it Graphically Novel that you had one of my friends on?
We've had Jesse.
Both. Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's done 2 different rec conversations at this point. He really enjoys rec conversations.
Yeah.
That's definitely right up his alley. Leia was so impressed with him, and I was like, yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I really like Jesse. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So we're in international waters. We've done this experiment. Everyone dies. Except for
the doctor. But
the doctor, right?
But AOC. AOC doesn't die.
Eventually, love interest, girl in the refrigerator, all the things. So, all that happens. And then you get to the spot where Milo and Michael meet again. And Milo's like, oh, you solved this problem. Let's work together. I know you can't control it. Maybe we can do it together, right? Like all about community, right? Mm-hmm. Here I am. And Michael's like, no, I am broody and I cannot control it. So neither should you. Go away from me. I must to my lab. And I was just sitting there thinking,
work here is done.
But you didn't do anything. My thought was, this is exactly how you create a villain, right? Yeah. You're looking at someone and you go, I have a cure for the thing that's ailing you right now. It is experimental, but maybe we could do this together. Even if it ends up where they end up, on opposite sides of the fence, you at least haven't kept someone from just dying on before their time. So I was like, Milo is 100% in the right to be pissed the fuck off about all of this. And here is our intrepid narcissist, Dr. Michael Morbius being like, only I can solve the problem.
Can we call him a pirate at this point?
Call him what?
Well, can we call him a pirate at this point?
The other thing in the movie in the movie, the other thing that is completely odious about the way Morbius treats Milo is fucking funding that research.
Yeah.
Milo is paying
He owns it.
for him to do this research. So for Morbius to be just like, no, go away, it's not for you, is,
dumb.
Well, and to go back to the comic, for someone who is a doctor and B should be thinking about ethics.
A doctor who doesn't know how to pronounce Nobel.
Right.
Yeah.
She
Nobel
was the
Prize.
one.
That was the second note that I had. Nobel, not Noble.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
And that was her, not him. He didn't.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
She said Nobel Prize. She was reading anyway.
Damn it, AOC, you know better.
Right. But so Milo was funding this research. You're a doctor, and I mean, I guess, comic book pseudo villain. I'm going to do things, because nothing is working, so I'm going to start to get unethical with it, which again, arrogant and narcissistic.
Right?
Yeah.
Milo's the libertarian hero.
Oh, God.
Okay. You now get out.
Can we lynch the editor? Is that a thing?
Well, not if you want the episode to release.
I'm not sure I do.
Oh, yeah. So yeah. Lots of bullshit happens after this.
I would also like to point out that we've got Milo that comes in and takes the same formula and
becomes awesome.
But here's the thing. So actually just goes back to the most basic bitch of Marvel plot lines, which is now suddenly there's a villain who has the exact same powers as the hero.
Yep.
Okay, really?
Right.
This is where we were going to go with this groundbreaking new movie?
Again, addressing.
Right.
Wonderful. Yeah, this was Sony copying Marvel's homework and doing it poorly.
This was like Sony trying to be in the DC Marvel wars where, okay, they came out with this character, so we got to come out with like a similar character,
right,
so that we can keep the
yes,
keep the money stream coming in. And they're just like, hey guys, what about me? So you get Marvel and you get DC, and Sony's back there like, hey guys, wait up.
Yeah,
I can do this too.
I bought these rights in the 90s, guys. You need to listen to me.
No, I tripped. I fell on my keys.
Ow.
Ow.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and look this up because
Oh, are you busting out the D?
No, I did that earlier. That's when I found the short.
I felt the power.
Wow. Okay. Good times.
Speaking of which, when is that? What is that short streaming anywhere?
I don't know.
I'm next. Now I'm kind of curious. Like, I seriously think that should be the thing that we watch.
I'm guessing if it'd have to be on YouTube if it's done with licensed characters. We can't make money off of it. Okay, so in the late 70s through the early 90s, Marvel Studios basically had like lots and lots of issues financially. This is just kind of a primer for why we are where we are to people not that familiar with comics. So I'm going to go over why some things have happened in the that they have. So Fantastic Four and X-Men were acquired by Fox. Daredevil and Hulk were acquired by Universal.
Mm-hmm.
Silver Surfer went with Fantastic Four. Iron Man was actually licensed out, and then those rights receded. And then Ghost Rider was one of the other ones, and it doesn't say who was licensed. But
I mean, just go back to Nick Cage and he'll
Right.
figure it out.
Spider-Man and anyone associated with Spider-Man was sold to Sony, which is why you don't have a lot of the cooler Spider-Man anything in the MCU, because Sony still owns the rights. The only reason that there is Spider-Man in the MCU is because Sony gets such a large chunk of the box office of anything that Spider-Man is in. So that's where it's also, we've discussed on this show before, why you'll never see an Incredible Hulk movie.
You're not going to see it with Hulk in the title as the main character.
Right. So that's why Hulk played a prominent role in Thor Ragnarok,
yep.
and
all the Avengers movies.
Right.
Like there were big Hulk storylines there.
And somehow She-Hulk wasn't involved in that deal, so that seems
because
to be
it was only Hulk. So
right, so that seems to be the backdoor that they're using, which is smart.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally down with that. Use all of it. Bring in Red Hulk. Bring in, Red She-Hulk. Bring in all of that.
So, since currently there is a deal, it almost seems like, this is my wild theory as a fan, they're building this Spider-Man-less universe to try and make it work for when they yank the rights back from the MCU and throw Spider-Man into this universe, therefore ruining everything.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
They've already set up some of that with the Carnage movie, because at the end of Carnage you get the post-credit scene where you've got the blip from No Way Home.
Right. Which then is also done at the end of Morbius, which we'll get into soon, which makes
wait.
sense.
There was a Carnage movie? I knew Venom.
Yeah, there was a second Venom movie. Yeah,
the second
that
Venom
one.
movie
Okay.
was
Woody
Carnage,
Harrelson played Carnage.
which oh god, so good.
It was basically Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, he was just revamping Natural Born Killers, but
Right.
still so good.
I like Woody Harrelson pretty much doing anything, so
Yeah,
I should
I
probably
don't
get
know
around
that-
to that.
I don't know that I've ever seen a bad Woody Harrelson movie.
We discussed this the other day, and I said, White Men Can't Jump, and you said we'd agree to disagree.
Yeah, we're just going to agree to disagree. So,
yeah, we discussed that during Absolute Carnage.
yes,
actually.
that's where it was. Okay, yeah.
All right, before we get to this, Jen, you did have something that you wanted to discuss, and I have remembered it.
Okay.
The what I'm wearing blurs when I use my vampire powers.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, and creates a color streak behind you
Maybe. Sometimes.
most of the time.
Like that aura that
Yes.
comes out when he's flying and it's sort of reddish.
Yeah.
But
Right.
sometimes it's purplish.
Yeah.
Hence why we have reddish and purple in the credits, and why those credits have such great aesthetics, but not necessarily when flying through a subway tunnel for no goddamn apparent reason.
Mhm.
Right. We're using echolocation. to
Oh
fly.
my god, I completely forgot
does
I had
not.
stuff to
Right.
talk about from that.
Oh yeah.
Oh Lord. Continue on, Jen.
Echolocation does not mean power of flight. That is not what echolocation does.
Also,
I-
did somehow his bones go hollow? Was
Yeah.
that part of...
How is he light enough to fly?
How is
Right? With a
any
wingspan that small?
how
Yeah,
is
wingspan
any
that small.
superhero allowed to fly? I'm just gonna put that up to
That's true.
in powers, fine, must
Right.
like don't try.
Storm controls wind.
Storm control,
Well,
yeah.
Storm controls wind, Superman, Green Lantern, all these people have different methods of flying, but if you actually go back to the comics, his bones are supposed to be hollow.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be genetic powers,
Right.
not
Right.
like that. Nothing supernatural.
Well,
Right.
and it wasn't echolocation, it was sonic. Like he had the sonic ability to fly. Like it created some, like he was flying by riding the sound waves.
Advanced vampire bats.
Yeah.
I would really just like to quote one of my favorite MST moments. And for those of you out there who are like, what are these people talking about? Mystery Science 3000, Josh and I and Jen all have basically shorthand.
Jen
sometimes.
is getting into it. I'm
Yeah.
starting to induct her.
She watched Laser Blast
Fuck
with
you!
me.
I've been watching it before I knew you.
Right, but we're watching more of it now.
Because there's
she-
more to watch.
There's more to watch, and she did watch Laser Blast with me
She's enjoying more of it, and you're just claiming Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes.
Is what you're doing.
Yes.
at a lake house, which I will always hold dear.
It was
Bring back
good.
Bring back the cops. But when you are talking about him, like how does he fly? All I could think about was
Puma Man?
cave dwellers.
Oh,
Ator's
yeah.
flying in his stupid contraption. Like that's what it feels like.
I was thinking more
in
Puma
this
Man. He flies like a
It's
moron.
Yes, that's well. Also, and we were talking about the cops, and we were like, the cops are supposed to be comic relief, but not. But yes, but no. Laser Blast, right? The cops are supposed to be comic relief in that one. Are you ready for some football?
Yeah.
And this is it. It's Okay, continue on, Jen. I have something for the echolocation portion. I also have something for the tropiness of this entire thing, and then we can do the last
No,
scene.
go ahead. I was done. My rant was like, okay. So he's flying on Sonic Wave.
I mean,
And when he uses his flight power, he basically, whatever he's wearing is a shit-stained smear across
so
the
there were
world.
two things that came up that actually reminded me of other things. You had brought up the Universal and all the rest of those pictures and stuff like that. Now I don't remember where I was going with that one. But when you guys brought up the color smear behind him, reminded me of, so when I was reading, it came up, the note came up in both comics. So when I was reading the old school comics and the new school comics, it says, I totally popped out of my electroshock machine in this weird vinyl outfit that hasn't changed or that I've washed since.
Right.
And my character concept is that I stuck a third-person Lestat inside Louis' head and dressed him up like he was going to a Kiss concert.
Oh my god.
You're not wrong.
Oh
You're not
my
wrong.
god. All right, JR.
Okay, so one, I love when he does quote-unquote echolocation, which doesn't also mean that you can hear things from across, like, the city, like, hear actual conversations. Right, that's not super hearing, just call it what it is. But his his pupils do that weird, like,
Yeah.
track test ink blot, like, I have no idea why. And the second thing...
Also, one of his powers is cultural appropriation because the vampire bats treat him as one of their own.
Oh, it's one of their own. Yeah. He's the anthropologist. So
But Martine didn't.
Martine.
There is a scene midway. Milo and Michael are talking about, Milo's taking the serum and he's drinking human blood. And it's a wonderful experience. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Milo's on the right track here.
Absolutely. Milo is right.
Milo's right. Hand him a leather jacket, call him a Bruhan, get him out of there. Like, it's... like, I'm ready to go. And I'm a Vampire the Masquerade fanboy. Like, I was going, Milo is on the right track. You don't just drink willy-nilly, but, like, keep it together, folks.
Bruja or Sombra?
Either one. They live next door to each other in this guy. So,
I'd watch a spin-off movie based off of Milo.
I'd
would
be
watch
down
a
with
spin-off
that.
movie based off
Hell
of Milo.
yeah.
And I think Milo would end up being a better hero than Morbius. We'll go into that later. But yeah. I think so I'm watching this thing while trying to keep my sanity. And the Milo and Michael having this conversation, and then they're having their first sort of like grunt fight, and Milo's having fun with it, and Michael's getting all growly, except for his growl sounds clearly computer generated. And Michael says, my favorite superhero line of all time, and it comes up all the time, especially in Marvel movies. Milo, I'm not going to fight you, ! They all say it. And as soon as they say something like, I'm not going to fight you,
they fight him.
For a fact, they're going to have to
fight.
Like, just do it now and save us all an hour. Like, just do it now. Beat the fuck out of each other and go on with your day. Right. And Morbius being suddenly so like morally like, oh, we must not fight or whatever. Like, it just come the hell on. Right. I'm not going to fight you. I rolled my eyes so hard they could have bowled a strike. And that is...
You rolled your eyes so hard you were looking at the goblin that controls the movements in your body?
Yes, absolutely. He says hi. And and I just, like, it brought into mind, like, you know, and obviously now I need to watch She-Hulk if this is what you say, but it brings into mind my, like, growing exhaustion with the Marvel series. And this is, you know, I feel like they've stretched themselves really thin. We could have probably an entire episode of JR Speaks Marvel, but
well, we will be doing.
Listen, we could have a bonus episode. That could happen
next season. We will be doing She-Hulk. Depending on how long it goes, it may be a multi-episode because there's so much to unlock. But once you have watched the finale of She-Hulk, I want you to get a hold of us, and I will say you will either adore it or you will hate it, but there is no denying there was a big swing taken.
Personally, I think you should just come to Iowa and we should just binge it, because I kind of had to watch it as it came out because Josh wouldn't let me show up at his place without showing me like the last episode that I hadn't seen yet.
I mean, personally, I think that you should come down next weekend. We'll do that on Friday, and then we'll play Blood on the Clock Tower, and then you can go to the Vandello show on Saturday. We can make a whole weekend out of it, but you probably have other things to do. Oh, not to mention on Friday night, I have the 3D glasses to watch the 3D MST3K episode that's going to air.
Okay, well, we'll just have to look. It's not like the MST3K episode's going to go anywhere in the next couple weeks. But I do need to go, listening friends. I do need to go up and visit y'all and run Blood on the Clock Tower, because you've never had me. You never watched me run something like Bad Moon Rising, where I am particularly mean-spirited.
Well, we'll be doing most of that at Midwinter. That's most of what we're going.
But don't stop him from coming to visit us, please.
No, I expect to see y'all at my 5 games. But we also, like, if I go up there for a weekend, also in that mix is, dearest listeners, this is a fun story, is the rematch for Brussels. And
fun fucking point,
and some other great. It would just be like there's Board Game Day, there's Blood on the Clock Tower / She-Hulk in the afternoon day, and then there's like whatever else we want to do. We'll plan that out, dearest listeners. Now you know what about our lives. But so anyway, back. This is what happens, by the way, dearest listeners, when constant readers, to quote Stephen King and Dairy Public Radio. Yeah, my darlings. This is how conversations with us work. But like into the Morbius world, once he says, "I'm not going to fight you," I was like, I can basically sketch out what's going to happen.
You can set an egg timer.
It's us in front of a conspiracy board with all of the like red string.
And then we get to that point where his love interest has been tortured or beat up or whatever. Like, I started losing complete interest by this point, but is laying on the ground, and Morbius is like, the whole like, I can save you, no you can't, yes I can, no you can't. And then she's dying and she goes, drink for me, make it mean something. And I was like, oh God, oh Jesus, just take me home. I was like Sanford from Sanford and Sons. I was like, I'm coming to see you.
Honestly, I wonder if that's where this quote that I've got, because like it's the second to the last quote that I've got on the movie, so we were probably almost done with that bottle of rum. But I have this quote, and I don't know, I don't think it must have come from you. I'm assuming it came from you. Maybe it came from me, but it says, at least give me that dick while you still have a back to move it with.
That was me.
That was you, okay.
My God. That definitely sounds like you. I just like it.
That was in honor of friend of the podcast, Justin Stacy.
Shout out to our boy.
Yep.
That whole like, and then you roll into the ending of they're gonna beat the fuck out of each other.
Right.
Okay, they do that. The bats. I mean, by this point in time, I had sort of lost the thread, especially in the fight scenes, which are in darkness.
Mm. Oh my God!
Who the hell knows what's going on?
The lighting in this fucking movie was atrocious too.
Yeah, so like, who the hell knows what's going on in this fight? But it seems like...
Listen, we saw better darkness fight scenes in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, which was, 20 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bats seem to view Michael as their brother, but the same person, the same serum,
yeah,
is not... Is it because Milo has not spent time with them in a hurricane lamp? Is that the reason?
Stockholm
is the whole
syndrome.
Reason that he does not have a hurricane lamp of vampire bats himself?
Right. I think it's Stockholm syndrome because he brought the bats from the island and kept them in the hurricane lamp of batness.
Also, the sequel fodder is insulting.
Oh,
that the love interest wakes up because he's accidentally embraced her.
Yeah, and oh God, yeah. It is an insufferable experience when it's not just sequel bait there. It's that final scene, right? It's that final credit scene, and I hate.
Are we gonna talk about it? Because I don't remember it. And I'm kind of waiting.
All right, so let me break it down.
Obviously, far too much alcohol in. I don't remember it.
It's one long scene broken into two parts.
Yeah.
The first part is that Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, Michael Keaton
I remember that part now.
wakes
Now
up
that
in a
you mention
prison
it,
cell.
Right?
The second part is that there is like a news report that you see that since Adrian Toomes did not exist in that universe and had not been charged with a crime in that universe, they just let him go. And he somehow shows up with Morbius in his vulture suit that was made of alien tech
From another timeline.
to have a discussion with him about how they
Okay.
should team up.
So my brain just blocked it all out because it was awful, and I really...
It is awful because it makes no sense.
Right, no, your brain blocked it out because your brain couldn't make any sense of
No,
it.
because my
it
brain
was
didn't
dumb.
want to see Batman fall to that level.
Yeah, well, apparently
He will
one of
always
his...
be my favorite Batman, by the way.
Right?
just so
Apparently,
anyone
one of
knows.
his best performances is going to go into a vault, and you will never see it, where he returns as Batman in the new Batgirl movie that they have completely done, and they just decided
And they
not
decided not to
release.
release it, but we are going to be stuck with Ezra Miller doing the Flash, whether we like it or not.
Right. And
So-
whether his victims like it or not.
whether his victims like it or not.
Okay, so before we get into
we
this-
have a podcasting. Do you want me to come on as a podcast?
Here.
To do therapists and comics or therapists and something so I can do
Yes.
that? It's
Yes.
Jesus fucking Christ. So, here's the thing. At the end of No Way Home, the spell that was in that was that anybody that knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man would come into that universe. The spell undid that and sent everyone back to their own dimension. Sony, in a poor attempt to copy Marvel's homework, went, oh, so then Toomes came to our reality. And we're like, but that's no, that has nothing to
No.
do with any of it. No.
That's not what that means.
Right.
That's not what any of this means.
Right. So
It's
I'm not,
also
yeah,
keep going. No, keep going.
I'm just not sure who thought that would ever fly.
Also, that last scene, right, when he's like talking to Michael Morbius and he says, I've heard about people like you. I'm trying to get used to the land here. I think this had something to do with Spider-Man. I think we should team up and make a difference around here, right? Like that. It was like a fucking Mad Lib.
Yeah.
Insert
Yes.
comic story here,
Yes.
right? Like it felt so stilted and false that regardless of the sensibility of the plotline, which of course there was none, but regardless of the sensibility of the plotline, they don't even script it well, right? That's the thing. Like they could have scripted this to where, okay, I can let some details go. This is a really cool idea, but it was just sort of like Michael Keaton is here, says a few lines, and we're done.
Yep. Yeah, it was just insufferable. Like it is a cap off to the shit sandwich that was this movie. Like, nothing was saved.
And then they tried to kiss it
Nothing.
off at the end like it was Venom.
Right.
Yeah, and really, I mean, to echo what Bear said, as also a person, I guess for all of us, I guess, as
We
part
are
of
all
the crowd.
people.
Yeah,
I
As all- as
appreciate
the
you
crowd who
naming
likes
me
it.
first as a person, though. Like
that's good.
Like,
Um,
close to my heart.
Close to your heart. I think as a group of people who like vampire movies, just sort of fill in the blank, right? Who like vampire movies. I agree with Bear. Like, had they not said Morbius or Marvel or Spider-Man universe or whatever, it would have been like,
Okay, I can forgive a
mid-grader.
lot of this.
I
Yeah.
would have.
I could have been like, okay, so they had an idea, they sort of went with it. I get where they're going. Interesting
into the middle of
vampire.
the ranks somewhere.
Right.
Above I Frankenstein, right?
Oh God.
Below
See, I
Dracula
don't
2000.
know. No, like I Frankenstein like leaned into their shit. Like I don't,
There is something to be said for a movie that just fully commits to what it's trying
They
to
Oh,
do.
did.
yeah,
They fully
fully
committed
committed,
to everything they were doing there, and they were all their own thing, and they just kind of ran with it. And I was okay with that. So I'm just kind of. I don't know if I'd have put this above I Frankenstein. I like right below it.
I think I have to go a little bit above. I will say this is sort of my gauge for whether or not I like a comic book or fantasy or whatever nerd culture thing that I am watching at any given moment. If I am leaving the theater and I want to run a game in that universe or like with a plot line that sort of sounds similar or like sparks off of that, then I enjoyed that movie. If I don't, then I've just wasted a lot of time. And with Morbius, Lord God, the only thing I thought of was, I guess guess I really want to play Vampire the Masquerade again to sort of get this taste out of my mouth. Like that's
Ew.
Yeah.
That's like chasing gin with vodka just to rinse it out of your mouth. I'm not sure because I don't like gin and I don't like vodka, so I'm just like,
So, for posterity's sake, JR, will you be reading any more Morbius comics?
Oh no. I mean,
Jenn?
okay. Actually,
wait.
hold on. I'm gonna reverse that. If I find out from like reviews or from some other people that the Morbius character has sort of embraced who he is and sort of and that direction is the direction they're going to go instead of him moaning about being a monster the entire time, sure, absolutely. Okay. But if it continues to be Morbius gives me a freshman lecture in Nietzsche while also bemoaning his life, absolutely not.
Jenn?
Yeah, no, I will not. I will not read this, and mainly for the points that JR said, and he's being kind, but he also voraciously reads comics. So yeah, no, I won't read any more of this. This was not anything I'd be interested in.
Bear?
Okay, so listen. I've already read way too much Morbius. Part of me wants to keep going with this like 70s style, like Dark Phoenix style Morbius like compendium that you had first uploaded, because I'm halfway through and I just kind of feel like I just need to complete the torture. Like I need the final release at the end that says you may go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Glad to send Nicholas apart. Yep, that's
so part of me is that now different from JR and Jenn, I actually kind of appreciate it, and I take a little bit of issue with Nietzsche because I loves me the shit out of some. I actually own a couple of his books, and having hung out with my little brother enough who actually had a philosophy degree in college, I was actually a little bit entertained by the bits of Plato and Aristotle that we got in between. Those did not take me out of the comic. Those were actually probably the only saving grace for me. I actually kind of appreciated that, much like, as we will discuss in a future episode when we get around to us doing the Hulk in season 8, much like when I was reading the Immortal Hulk and they step into moments of Judaism where they start discussing whether or not the Hulk is just the left hand of God as a destroyer. Those moments of philosophy actually kind of ring with me, and I actually appreciate those a little bit more. So that was really the only thing that kept me reading this comic until the end. Would I read more of it? I still agree. I agree with that final sentiment from you, JR, that if somebody tells me that, he's going to end up being, air quotes, the good vampire that's kicking ass and taking names, all right. If he's going to be like the next, or not really the next, the other Blade,
yeah,
the not as cool Blade, maybe I'll read a little bit more. But I want somebody else to tell me that. I'm not going to go out and experiment on my own. I don't want to experiment on myself. I am not Morbius. I am not Peter Parker. I'm not going to go out and experiment on myself. It's not going to happen.
So for me, I will put a big asterisk on this and say I do read Spider-Man. I do read Blade stuff. So if he shows up in those, I will obviously character again. But
I don't think if Morbius... okay, this is a completely separate debate. I think if Blade and Morbius meet, Blade just slaughters the motherfucker, and that's end.
It's happened, and basically Blade understands that he's a different sort of creature.
It's happened?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just 5 pages of we killed him, and that's the end, and the rest is just weird-ass ads for, like...
No. So, my thoughts are, and I wrote them down.
Sorry, my brain was going straight back to Tales from the Crypt. It was just, like, weird-ass ads for, like, Nazi stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
I will not read this in a box. I will not read this with a fox. I will give this a big old veto. I do not like you, Jared Leto.
Well done. 100% here for that.
JR, thank you so much for joining us once again. Oh, yes, snaps, not claps. JR, thank you so much for joining us again. This was a treat. I understand that you have things to do, as do we, so we will bid you adieu until we see you once again.
So we're going to watch She-Hulk and play board games.
Yes,
Yeah.
Love you, darling.
But
Love
also,
you, darling.
But also next season when we do Sandman.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So
a
everyone
lot of
else,
reading to do.
yes, everyone else, please tune in 2 weeks. We'll be doing a Jenn preview of season 8. We will be doing Harley Quinn, which is one of her favorites, the cartoon version.
Cartoon, the new animated
The
series.
new animated with Kaylee Cuoto.
Yes.
In Lake Bell, and it will be a great time. But until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems. Nothing's ever as it seems. Do 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 do. Hero or villain, loved or hated by millions. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but you don't want to see